Good morning, my name is Ruth. This is Fae Hollow Homestead. I'm out in the garden today harvesting some stuff. So when I was first gardening, one of the things that excited me the most was growing my own food. One of the things that scared me the most was preparing that food after harvesting. First of all, when do you harvest? How do you know it's ripe? And then second of all, what do you do with it once you have it? Because you want something that's going to be delicious. You want something that's going to be able to stay on your shelves or in your refrigerator for a while. And you got to do it fast. I mean, it's got to happen like pretty much when you harvest. And a lot of times in the garden, there's a ton of harvesting that happens all at the same time and a lot of different types of food. And so what do? Well, one of my favorite things to do now is kimchi, because that really, I mean, it's kind of like a sauerkraut, but it's got more vegetables in it. Sorry, fixing the camera. And so I can put carrots and radishes and cabbage and, you know, some other things in there as well, onions, garlic, all at the same time. And that prepares a lot of the food that I harvest into one dish, which is delicious and really good for us. So that's one way. The green beans, I'm going to do a whole different video on what we do with green beans, because I've only really just become very comfortable with it. It terrified me before. Anything with pressure canning. Oh, my husband, we had a pressure cooker once, and I was sick and I had soup in it, and I asked my husband, I was like, could you get me some soup from the pressure cooker? And he went and he got the soup, and I swear I let it decompress, but apparently not. He opened it up and it exploded all over him, this scalding hot soup, and he has burn scars on his arm. It would just covered his arm. Skin fell off. It was bad. It was really bad. And if you've ever had a burn, you know that is a really intense pain. That is a constant kind of pain too. So pressure cooking scared me for a while, because, you know, and I realize now that the pressure cooker that I had was actually a secondhand one. It was slightly broken. You had to know how to do it in order to really do it well, and I didn't. And so anyway, so I'm not as afraid of it anymore because I've learned how to do it the right way. So I'll do a whole different video on how to do that the right way. First of all, I'd like to say, make sure that you have a new pressure cooker. Make sure all the parts work. Make sure it's really good. Make sure the gasket is really good, and the seal, and all those things. But I'm going to show you what I do with the harvest that I've been having. So I've been harvesting, you know, fruits and vegetables, and I want to save this stuff for when it's winter, and I want to be able to do that quickly because I got other stuff to do. I got a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of balls up in the air right now. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing more empowering than growing your food and then actually turning it into something that you're going to use, eat, readily accessible. You know, when you dry fruit, all you have to do is you start snacking on it. Like, it's easy. And now you're building up the stockpile. And there's nothing more addicting or empowering, I think, for me, than building up my food stockpile for the winter so that we can have all this fresh food, or food that was grown in the garden. Okay, so here we have the things that I brought from the garden the other day. I still got to go out and get the more beans, but I wanted to do a video based on what you do with your food once you harvest it, because that's something that I always struggled with. I grew it, and then I was like, what do I do with this? So I'm going to show you what I do with the onions. Obviously, there's a lot more onions in the garden. These are only the ones that had the tips bent over like this, and so those are the ones that I harvested right now. I've got a really great pickling beet recipe that I use. I'm going to ferment the carrots, and I totally forgot about the cabbages that I got, but these cabbages I'm also going to ferment. We're going to make a sauerkraut with these. And if you guys don't know, fermenting foods is really, really good for the gut microbiome. And so anything that you can ferment, it's probably one of the best ways that you can eat it, other than fresh straight out of the garden. And all these things are things that I want to store and I want to have for this winter. And so I am going to be canning the beans. When you can you usually lose, especially if it's heat canning, you're going to lose all the nutrients, but there's not like a ton of nutrients in beans that I'm worried about losing. The beets, the carrots, those are the things that I really want to keep the vitamins for. The cabbage is just fermenting, it gives you a lot of vitamins. And then the onions, I'm just going to dry store, so they're going to be as fresh as possible. I keep adding to this. I also picked some fresh peaches. These are the first ones that are ripe off of my tree after the few that we ate because we couldn't help ourselves. And so as they ripen on the tree, I'm going to be picking more of them. But what I'm going to do with these and with most of my peaches, we're not huge on preserves. We're not big on jams or, pie or anything like that, but we do love snacking. And so I'm going to dry slices of these and I'm going to make those into a dried fruit that we can snack on throughout the whole winter. So here's what I've got going on so far, and I'm going to show you as I prepare them. Okay, so first of all, the onions, they're going to be the easiest thing. Now the idea is you want to let them dry with a lot of airflow. So I've got this tray that I use for my seedlings in the spring, and I'm going to place it like this, and all I'm going to do, let me move my cabbage out of the way, because this is so easy, it's ridiculous. And for about 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to have these onions sitting out, just laying on this tray like so. And I'll have the ends just kind of drop off the end a little bit there. And this is going to promote a lot of airflow. I'm going to make sure that they're not touching each other. And I'm just going to set this in our house. Now we don't do air conditioning, and so there's a lot of air ventilation. We keep the windows open, and it's going to stay above 70 degrees during the day, and it's probably only going to go down to like 60 degrees at night. So this is a really good environment, especially keeping it out of the sun, where these can just dry out. And then I'll braid these together, and I'll have ropes of onion ready for me to use whenever I need to. If I have so many that I run out of room where I can hang them, I will put some into a basket that, just like this, has a lot of holes and a lot of air ventilation, because ventilation is the key to keeping your onions really good. Now, if you noticed, I have these onions over here. These had the really tiny stem, the thin stem. You can see these have a much thicker stem coming off of them. These are not going to keep very well at all, and so I'm going to basically just keep these in a little basket in my kitchen and use these when we make omelets or stew or whatever it is that I'm going to put onions in, which is pretty much everything when I cook. So these onions are for use directly right away, and these are going to store for a longer amount of time. Guys, the smell of fresh cabbage from the garden, first of all, look at how beautiful that is. Isn't that gorgeous? And I could smell that all day long. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. If you guys haven't smelled fresh cabbage from the garden, grow some. It's good stuff. So I've got these two different carrots that are a dark color, but the insides are so different. I think it's one of the prettiest parts of the carrots is when you can grow the really dark purple ones. Isn't that gorgeous? And I love the yellow burst in there. And then we've got these, there's a light orange and a dark orange, and then you got that purple. And I'm okay using these real tiny ones because I'm going to be putting it in the blender, chopping it up along with what I did with the cabbage, and then blending it all together, putting them in my fermenting jars, and this is going to be my sauerkraut or kimchi blend. So here we go. I've got this. There's carrot, there's radish, there's onion, and then everything under here is the cabbage. I'm going to put some turmeric in because I'm a big believer of turmeric. I'm going to put some ginger, and I'm also going to put some garlic, which I apparently forgot to get out. Okay, so here we go. I put the spices in, and now I'm just going to put a whole bunch of salt in, and I'm going to mix it all together, get my hands all sorts of dirty. And they are washed, like when I come out of the garden. And the salt is going to be the thing that really extracts the liquid from the cabbage as well as the other vegetables in here. And it's going to just soak in its own juices. Okay, so while this is sitting and the salt is soaking into it, the beets are right here, and I just put some water on them. And I just want to say, like, are beets not the most beautiful vegetable in the garden? I am pretty sure that they really are. They're like the flowers, the decoration, I mean, it's just so beautiful. So I'm excited. I'm going to start heating this up, soften them up a little bit, and then we'll pickle them. Okay, I'm adding some sugar, half a cup of sugar. And then I'm going to do the same thing for vinegar. So this is a apple cider vinegar that I made myself. Let me do this differently. Last year with the apples that we used for Thanksgiving with some friends, and this apple cider vinegar is the best I've ever had. Homemade's the way to go. Also, anytime I pickle anything, eggs or anything, I always use apple cider vinegar, and it makes the taste so much better. So I'm really excited to have the homemade apple cider vinegar with these pickled beets. I'm gonna get some spices now. Okay, I'm putting a little bit of cinnamon in. That's just a little bit of cloves. I don't want them to be like too spiced, but I do like to have a little bit of spice in there. So, and then I'm putting a little bit more cinnamon than I would put cloves. Cloves is very strong. And hold on. And so then I just stir this up, and I'm gonna let this kind of simmer for about 30 minutes. And I'll just pour it in jars, and then I'm done. So there's no water bath canning with this. There's no sterilizing your jars or anything like that you need to do. There's no making a separate brine, because you're making the brine in with the beets. I think it makes it a lot more flavorful. And then I'm just going to stick this in a canning jar and leave that in the fridge, and make sure that we eat that within the next 6 months, which is not going to be a problem. And I just gotta say, it smells so good already. I should be doing this during Thanksgiving time too, because it smells like Thanksgiving. There's nothing better than having a kitchen full of really amazing smells, and then just having that permeate the house throughout the day. And so if I'm doing something like this, I really like to do this right before my husband gets home, so that when he comes home, he can come home from, you know, a really stressful day at work and walk into the smell of something so comforting and delicious. I missed it by like 20 minutes today. He's already here, but he's taking a shower and everything like that after work, because he works, you know, at the sawmill. So there's a lot of sawdust he's got to take care of. And then hopefully when he gets out of the bathroom now, he'll smell this, and it will be more, it'll be reassuring and comforting, because now he's clean, now he's ready to enjoy the day and relax. And I did forget to say that I added about a half a teaspoon of salt to this as well. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. Okay, so here we go. We got the sauerkraut going on, or the kimchi, I guess, however you want to say it. And after I've put the salt on here, I'm just gonna press it. You can feel the moisture just starting to really, I mean, can you see it? See the water coming out? There's a lot of water coming out right now. And I'm just gonna put some more salt on here. The more that I press this, the more water will come out, the faster this is going to go. But it's getting super moist now. I mean, it was just firm and crisp before, but now it's getting super moist. Things are getting a little bit more droopy, and that's just a really good sign that it's doing what it needs to do. Okay, so here are the peaches, and I'm getting ready to put them on the drying rack. I only have a couple more that I need to slice up, and we'll be done with today's food. Okay, so here's my kimchi situation. I had it sitting with the salt and everything like that for a while, and I put it into one of my fermenting jars. Now this is just a regular mason jar. The lid is back there. But Ball also sells these fermentation kit things, lids and springs. This fits onto a wide mouth lid, and it comes with this spring and this lid, and the lid has these air holes in it so that there's a little bit of breathing, so you don't have to worry about, you know, explosions or anything like that, but it's not going to let in like a ton of air. It's just exactly the right amount. And then this spring pushes down when you put the lid on. It pushes down on whatever it is that you're fermenting in your container, because you don't want anything to be above where the liquid is. Now, since I really just started doing this, I haven't created all the liquid that's going to be created yet with this, so I'm okay with where it is right now. It's going to sit there for a little while, and there's going to be more and more liquid. You can see it already pooling up at the top there. Over here, I just put the rest of my kimchi. We're just gonna call it kimchi. It's not like a traditional kimchi, but it's more kimchi than it is sauerkraut just because of what I put in it. And I'm just gonna kind of push this down just a little bit. And then I can use this and all I do is I put that in there, and then I put the lid on. I put this on maybe 3 minutes before this one, maybe 5 minutes now, but you can already see how much more liquid is coming up on this one, and rather than this one, and I literally just did this, so it's not going to take very long for the moisture to start building up. You can see the juices right here, and they're kind of rising a little bit. That's super cool. But the biggest thing is you don't want water touching the food or air touching the food. So if after an hour, and you can see how fast this rose in just like 5 minutes, but after an hour, if there's not water or liquid covering the food, I'm going to come in, I'm going to put some more liquid in here, and then that's what the spring does. It keeps the food level below the top of the liquid, and it keeps the food from touching the air, and that's what keeps it fermenting and not going bad and spoiling. So it's super easy and so healthy. It's ridiculous how healthy this is, and it's delicious. I think it's absolutely delicious. So easy peasy, right? And I didn't even have to cook it. All I did is chop it up, put some spices, some salt. The salt's the big deal. And then let it sit for just a little while, and then I put it in these jars, and that's all. I mean, how easy can you get? Now here's the beets. I put the beets in their own jar. That whole thing filled up one of my canning jars, and it's self-sealed, because when I put it in here, the liquid was very hot, and so as it cooled, it's self-sealed. Now I'm still going to just put this in the fridge, because we're going to eat this within the next 2 weeks probably, because this is just really, really delicious stuff. And this is coming from someone who traditionally doesn't even like beets at all, but this is amazing, and it is so different than beets that you've had from the store, canned beets, anything like that. This is completely different. It's the difference between like strawberry candy and actually eating a strawberry. So this is all the beets, all the cabbage, the carrots, the radishes, and the peaches are in the dryer, and they're just, going to town. And the beans I'm going to do a different video on, because that's a whole nother process, but it doesn't take a lot of time. It just, there's a lot of steps that goes into it, and there's a lot of waiting time, so I just don't have time for that today. But here we go. This is basically, and I did put some onion in here, so this is basically all the harvest that I just had, and I'm using it. And the green beans are going to be, I've probably got 6 of these jars worth of green beans now, because I went and picked the rest of them. And the peaches, I'm just going to keep harvesting those, but we're going to have jars and jars of those. My vacuum sealer seals jars as well. I'll probably put some in some vacuum sealed bags, and they'll stay good for a long, long, long time. So that's how you handle your harvest easily and quickly if you don't have a lot of time and you don't want to make a bunch of meals or something like that and leave them in the fridge. If you just want to immediately store them, this is how you do it. And here we go. This is 5 minutes later. I pushed down on the edges just a little bit, but I mean, it's looking pretty darn good at this point. So I'm super excited. I might come in later and just kind of like wipe off the edges here. I don't know if that's necessary, but I like to do it. So I don't know. You can research that if you wanted to, but that's what I do. But already, I mean, most of the food is pretty much covered up by this liquid, and I did not add any water. This is all just liquid from the cabbage itself. When the salt gets put on it, it just pulls that moisture right out of it, and then it's able to ferment. Okay guys, well that's gonna do it for today. It is, again, it's so empowering to be able to actually put this food up and know that we have it ready for us whenever we want it, you know, whenever the mood strikes us. We're gonna be able to just go grab this. It was the most intimidating part for me growing a garden. It wasn't the growing of the garden, you know, it was, am I gonna be able to put this food up the right way? Am I going to be able to cook it the right way? Am I going to be able to store it and not let it all go to waste? And so this is how I do my vegetables. These are really common things that people grow. And so, yeah, and you can ferment pretty much anything. A quick Google search will also help you find any recipes that you want to find, like fermented broccoli, or, I mean, you can do fermented apples. I mean, really, really good stuff. And it's so easy. Some people get a little bit intimidated. I know I was when I first, you know, heard, oh, you can ferment your own things. I mean, it sounds like, you know, making beer or something like that, super complicated, you know, pressure, you know, sugars, yeast, all this stuff. No, it's really easy. It's easy stuff. So I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful day. Please hit that like button, the notification bell, and the subscribe button. I appreciate it so much. And you guys, stay blessed.